All right, we got another short one today because I think we're doing these little episodes because there's some really key principles to mindfulness that we all need to know and also all need to be reminded of. And after these 260 some episodes that we've done, there is some things and some core principles that are very, very clear. And one of them is called the gap. And Viktor Frankl, John loves saying this quote. So what does Viktor Frankl say about the gap, John?
Yeah, so I'll paraphrase. So let me just tell you who Viktor Frankl is. So Viktor Frankl, he was a Holocaust survivor, a psychiatrist. He spent years in Nazi concentration camps and literally had everything taken away from him, everything. And he came out of that experience with this idea that I think about a lot, constantly almost. And that's why Will says, this is why I love it. And again, I'm going to paraphrase it because I don't want to butcher the exact words, but the gist is this: between what happens to you and how you respond to it, there's a space, a gap. And inside that gap is your power, your power to choose how you respond. And inside that choice, that's where growth lives. That's where your freedom lives. And this is a man who, again, lost his family, lost his freedom, lost every physical comfort a human being can lose. And he's here saying the one thing nobody could take from him was this tiny space between what happened to him and what he did next. So, here's the problem. Most of us don't live in that gap. A lot of us don't even know it exists. Maybe it could be an email that comes in and pisses you off, and then you fire something off immediately, which you regret 20 minutes later, or your kid does something ridiculous at your height of stress and you snap. Or maybe you get bad news and you spiral for the rest of the afternoon. And something happens and then reaction follows. There's no space in between, like a reflex. And the gap, it's not about suppressing those reactions. I want to be clear here on that. It's not about stuffing it down or pretending that you're not pissed off. It's about noticing that you are pissed before you do something with it. It's actually faster in the long run if you do this, because you're not spending the next 2 hours or 2 weeks or however long it is cleaning up the mess that you made when you reacted without thinking, right? You never sent that email that you regretted. You never said that thing to your kids or your spouse that you regret, and then try to spend the rest of the day doing damage control, right? So yeah, the gap exists, and the gap can be trained, and the gap can prevent that. So
it's, for me, it's like the freedom to choose. Like this is where our freedom lies, right in that gap. And we kind of bypass this gap very often because we're so hardwired for speed. Especially as men, we're so wired to get things done. We often live in the fight or freeze survival mode all the time, right? Which we're driven by cortisol, adrenaline. So we don't have even the opportunity and therefore the ability to access this freedom that's already in the gap. Whether that's in emails or meetings or marriages, relationships, like kind of John was talking about. No one taught us about this gap, and this is why we're so passionate about it, because it's so incredibly important to mind this gap and also create a wider gap as well. And it takes practice. It takes technique. I wish that schools had taught us this. I think all schools should do this right now, right? Just imagine all the outcomes within school, all the outcomes we can have now if we just learn to pause, chill out, not rise into whatever that emotional circumstance is, and chill out, and then be responsible with a calm, cool, and head and move forward. So this is a kind of that opportunity, to think before you speak instead of wrecking relationships and then, potentially taking years in order to, change that relationship and get it back. I gotta say, it's not if we're used to being so habitual in certain ways, the gap is going to feel uncomfortable because, it really, because if we're used to just being hardwired in a certain way, so we got to sit on that impulse. We got to watch that impulse. We got to pull back and just kind of like take that freedom, take that opportunity. And sometimes minding this gap and developing this gap and getting to know this gap and then exercising this gap is sometimes like the hardest thing you could possibly do.
For sure. And what's kind of counterintuitive about it is that when you do insert this gap, when you're intentional about it, a lot of people feel that taking that time feels like weakness, because you said we're wired for speed. We're like, let's get things done, get things done. That includes in a conversation, that includes when we're stimulated by something else, and we want to get something done really fast. But if we pause, that can feel like weakness. And it is not just standing there where we're letting the moment pass you by. It's actually more intentional than that. So, this, I got to laugh too when you said mind the gap, because it takes me back to when I was very young. I was in London on the subway.
Yeah.
And they say, mind the gap in this really British accent. I love it. But also, that aside, there's good news that this gap, it's trainable. It's not this thing that you're either born with or you're not. It's a skill, and like anything else, you can build it. And so here's how you can start. I'm just going to go through a couple of processes here, a couple of things that we actually teach in the course that we're going to mention here in a second. First thing is one breath. And I know how that sounds because we've been told to just breathe, right? But trust me, one breath before you respond to something that's got you pissed off, something that's got you fired up. Just one breath. And it sounds stupid. It sounds trivial. It sounds like there's no way this is going to work, but it does. That single breath is enough to break that natural reflex loop. It's enough to just create just a sliver of space between the thing that happened and the thing you're about to do. You don't need this. You don't need to pause the conversation and be like, hey, I need 10 minutes to meditate, right? Which clearly that's not going to happen. It's not realistic. You just need one breath.
Yeah.
And that's going to break that reflex loop for you, but it's also potentially going to break the reflex loop for the person that you're speaking to or the stimulus that got this thought going. So it could be beneficial to you and the other party involved. The second exercise is notice your body. Like physically, where are you feeling this? Where do you feel the reaction? Like I'm pointing to my chest right now. Maybe it's your jaw is clenched. Maybe your shoulders are creeping towards your ears, or you can feel your head tightening. Your hands are gripping the steering wheel, like you're trying to choke it out. And your body, really, your body knows before your mind does. So if you notice your body tensing up, you can put that pause there every single time. If you can learn to pay attention to those physical signals, you've got an early warning system that most people completely ignore, and the body is really screaming at you. We just never learn to listen to our body. The third thing is naming what's happening. Say it to yourself, and it doesn't have to be out loud. Although sometimes that might be helpful. Saying in your mind, "I'm pissed right now. I'm scared. I want to fix this immediately, and I don't even know what I'm fixing." The naming the thing creates the distance from the thing. We've all heard "name it to tame it," right? It's the difference between being angry and noticing that you're angry, and those are two completely different experiences. It's almost like you're stepping out of yourself and having this out of body experience. One of them, the being angry and noticing that you're angry, one of them owns you. The other one you're watching. So you've got some separation there. And then the last one, and this is the one a lot of people skip, practice in low stakes moments, right? Don't wait until you are really pissed off to try to insert this gap. Don't start with your boss. Don't start with your spouse. Definitely do not start with your 4-year-old kid. Maybe start with traffic, right? Traffic is stopped and the typical reaction is, oh no, now I'm going to be late. Okay, pause. Okay, is this really dangerous? Are you at risk? Are you facing a true threat? Maybe start with the slow person in the grocery line, right? I went to Walmart a couple of days ago, and this lady started writing a check, and I was like, I'm in a hurry. In my mind, I'm thinking, I'm in a hurry, and then I was like, am I though? Do I really need to be in a rush? Start with the internet. Reading the comments in the internet, and you instantly want to type a response, and then you're like, what good is this going to do, right? You got to build that muscle memory, that proverbial muscle memory. Now you're actually working your brain, where the consequences are basically inconsequential. They're basically zero. Because if you can find that gap when somebody cuts you off on the interstate, I've got I-25 out my door here, out my window. If you get cut off on Interstate 25 and you can inject that gap, then you've got a shot at finding it when something actually matters. So, I'll turn it back over to you, Will. Sorry.
No, it's like, this is a very core principle about anything that you want to be more in charge of your life and experience that freedom and make better choices and show up differently and be the badass person that you are on the inside. Then it's going to take work. And we designed a course basically around this entire principle because, like Jon was saying earlier, like you have to be able to slow down in order to feel and get to know not just the internal compass, but also to get to know the feelings that are going on inside you before you come out and explode on that poor old woman that's probably writing a check in the in Walmart. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's just like they don't need any of that. Like the world, I think one thing, the world does not exist on your timeline.
That's right.
Period. Right. And the gap is going to help you to realize that. Yeah, go ahead, Jon.
Kids will help you to realize that too.
Exactly. So we built a course called Awareness to Action. And, awareness is what's happening, like how you got to become aware in order to slow down, to find the gap, to make a different choice. Right. And action, so we become more intentional and responsible for our actions instead of reactive and messing up all our relationships and ruining somebody else's day and ruining our own day in the process as well. So enrollment for this course starts on May 27th. We actually have a free webinar that day to kick off. Just so you want to learn more about that, we're going to have that information in the show notes. So what we ask for you is, we'll definitely add your email if you want more information about this, but what would life be like if you just start taking one breath, right? What if you wake up in the morning and just, instead of like going immediately to your phone or the things that create the reactivity in your life, what if you just took a minute or two and just found your breath? Feel yourself sitting here, listen to sound, smell a flower. It's springtime right now, pause before you send that email, before you respond to your kids, find that gap, before you walk into a meeting, and then notice what changes, and then see what's next. It's like really so incredibly powerful to know yourself at this deepest level and understand how the gap can really help you to change your life.
That's right. And if it's not the gap, maybe you bypass the gap and you do react. Well, the rest of the course can also teach you how to reel yourself back in, how to come back to center. And that, if you have done some damage, we talk about relationships, we talk about communication in the course. If you have done some damage in something that you've said or done, noticing that you've done that much faster, that can also help you to change yourself, help you to change the relationship. So that's another shameless plug for the course. So, sign up to get more information on the upcoming course. Like Will said, May 27th is when we go live, and we'll do a webinar that day to kind of walk people through it. Thank you all. Appreciate you. Until next time, take care. Bye-bye.
Find the gap.